We're back overcoming, and we do have some interesting topics to get into. Despite the fact that EPL lacked certain teams, there was no Vitality, there was no Falcons, and it felt a bit weird, especially once the playoffs started and the two big favourites in different ways shat the bed. But we're going to get into all of that. We're going to talk about different teams, what the change they should make, who they're competing with, I guess, like the champion of EPL, how much is that going to mean for them in the long run. Joining me to have these conversations, of course, Thorin, chief debater and Twitter strategist, I guess, because there's method to that madness that's going on the social medias.
Hey, what? It always hits, doesn't it? It always hits.
Tell us the secret.
Who knows why? I know.
It's something. It's something. I don't know what it is. I'll never understand. And of course, Ted, our Bulgarian, famous for his major appearance and also, as he's slowly telling us, his future upcoming book that's going to be a tell-all, from the streets to the major, something along those lines. There's a path in there that I'm sure will be very interesting and sponsored by Skin Club. So yeah, we will be talking, I'm sure, more about you in the future, Ted.
Shout out Skin Club.
Shout out Skin Club, why not? They used to sponsor me. No one else does currently, so we can give them a quick shout out. But let's get into some topics. Let's get into some Counter-Strike. We're going to begin with a bit of Superstar Silo. A bit, realistically, we're just talking about a team. We're talking about NAVI. But look at these stats. Makazze takes home his first ever HLTV MVP, 130 rating, 0.81 KPR, good multi-kills, incredible ADR. Like, that's the one thing. Even in its bad maps, you get to the end of the map, he still somehow always has 80 plus ADR. He lands bullets. Opening success was incredible. His T side was over 50% with a 30% attempt rate. Classic heavy carry opener stuff and an incredible round swing. This was really his coming out moment. It's like a true star. Like, he's had really big series in playoffs, especially last year. Like, he was a magnificent playoff performer in his time with NAVI last year, but never came together to really mean a whole lot. I mean, the one event they win is the one event he's basically absent, and it's not even the big event. So this is a nice thing to see, but more importantly, it posits a few things about NAVI. Like, can they sustain this? Can they build on this? What's their ceiling? First of all, gents, let's just talk about this Makazze performance. Phenomenal. Expected, though? Or maybe some shocked reactions from the two of you?
I wouldn't say shocked reactions per se, because I think towards the end of last year, we were already kind of starting to get accustomed to the fact that he would be the X-Factor player on NAVI. I would say it was pleasantly surprising to see Makazze be consistent over the course of an entire tournament, right? Because last year we had a bunch of series and a bunch of, I guess, sequences of games and maps where he would be the best player on the server for Navi at times, and then people would get excited. But I think the main idea when he was brought into the team, especially for the first 6 months, when you get someone from the academy, you're not, unless he's Donk, expecting him to just become the number one star of the team instantly. The main reason he was brought into the team was to be a little bit of a sharper element, right? To open up the game a little bit so they can have a soldier, someone to go in and create space. I think the reason that it was pleasantly surprising and has been so far his development in 2026 is the fact that he's slotting in a little bit more into that type of player that can actually be the number one guy you're looking at, not only to create space, but just to carry Navi through the games and have that big X-Factor performance. So you're starting to see him kind of go on the path of becoming the star of Navi, even though it's still a little bit weird to say when throughout that event, for example, Wonderful had one of his best events in a while. Ima played some of the best land maps that he's ever played as well. And then you have, for example, Bit, who's been the highest rated player of the team since the start of the year, right? So I think it's more the team being functional when it comes down to Makazze. I am surprised he did all of that with I want to say not the greatest success on T sides, because Navi in general just struggled a little bit, right? For a lot of people, if you told him that, they tell you the eye test doesn't check, but he had like 30% success rate on T side openers throughout this entire event, which is very low for someone that was the highest rated player of the entire tournament alongside Fuzi. Yeah, he did.
It's over 50. It's 30% attempt rate. He's got 50% success rate. Yeah.
T-side is 32.1% for stage 2 of EPL for the finals, for the LAN stage. Online,
just the
maybe
LAN
it
stage.
buffs it up.
Oh, okay.
Just the
I was
LAN
looking at the
stage is
entire
30%.
period. No.
I'm talking about the LAN stage, because I think this is the one that matters a little bit more. I should have clarified. I think that's the one that matters a little bit more than online. But yeah, it's not that high. CT side though, absolutely excellent, but I think it's more complementary to the style of Navi than it is surprising simply from his point of view as an individual, because he's getting more experience, he's a good player, and eventually when the team is functioning, he gets more opportunities and he keeps playing better. But I wouldn't necessarily call it shocking. It's still it's still pleasantly surprising, but not in a shocking way. It's more, just nice to see.
Fuck all that noise. Everything he just said there, delete it all, recycle bin, empty.
What do you mean?
It's the problem. It's not shocking that a player has a life fucking tournament that he's never had anything approaching to as an entire. What in that scenario? What would shock you? What does he have to do? Have a 1.7 rating? Like what? By definition, it has to be shocking when someone has like a big step up, because the problem is, notice what you didn't say there. All right, I'll spin it back to you before I give Marty.
Sure.
If it wasn't shocking, then predict he does it again.
I mean, it's difficult to predict he does it again. But
Why?
I wouldn't...
Oh, you mean it would be surprising if he did it again? Is that what you're saying?
No, but the thing is, if you look at the similar events, for example, the last time Navi won a tournament, if you want to give an example, it was the Star Ladder Star Series 4. That was his previous highest rated LAN event, and it was a 124. This one is a 138, which is higher, but it's still a very high performance with the level of competition.
Way higher. It's way higher. Bro, that gap isn't like 0.02. That's an enormous gap. And also, that event, by the way, was a worse event. I mean, he didn't have the greatest opponents in this one, but that was also like, I'd say, a 1.5 type tournament. So my problem is this, right? I think it's totally fine to say, like, he was on the uptake. I also do think, by the way, he's one of those players. By the way, it's nearly all of them in Navi now. You know that famous thing way back when it was the Eastern European Navi, where Blade said something like, give me 6 months or something. And that became like an iconic quote, because if you have a look, in about 6 months is when they became super insane and we all went back to LAN and they won everything. It's actually been like that with all the players he brings in. If you have a look, none of them are insane right out the gate. Like, remember when Wonderful first joined Navi, he was just supposed to be a temporary replacement for Simple. No one ever thought he'd last. JL, he was in the team for months and months before he ever was like major MVP and all that stuff. I actually think pretty much everyone, if you remember, Bit wasn't even that good when they made the international roster. It took him a bit of time to get his shit together and become so good. I think it's true that this is how you know that like the Blade system isn't easy. Because I think integrating people, even one player, clearly takes time. So if you saw Makazze at the beginning, you just saw flashes here and there, and you could see how, if anything, actually, I thought Blade was quite cynical early on. It looks like they really did just use him as like a battering ram, like, right, just run in sometimes, like be aggressive essentially, and we'll use that off. Now he's doing that, but playing star player. Like, put it this way, if you showed me these numbers, but you just put the name of your Kindar at the top, we'd be like, oh yeah, your Kindar's fucking cooking. He's back, boys. This is like peaky Kindar. So here's the thing. I'm with you. This does look like what is possible from Makazze, but we've never seen anything like this before. Like, this is like, this is the dream tournament. It wasn't a life game, just a whole tournament, but this was a fantastic performance. Also for me, I'll throw this out there. This is one of the reasons why I don't totally hate on Blade and Navi in the way I do hate, unfortunately, on FaZe with Jacob. Because I'm sorry, I don't give a fuck about that one play on Inferno the other day, guys. I don't look at Jacob and go, any minute now, guys, he's going to kick it. Not least, by the way, because that's not even what Carrigan teams do. In Carrigan teams, you do get really good right out the gate. You don't get good 6 months in. So the difference is, with Makazze, I remember I even said this in the last season, if you're Blade, the logic of why you don't change roster is you go, well, Makazze actually is the player that could improve in a way that we can't, actually could be just 10% better. Like, that's plausible for him. And I'll even throw this out there. Here's the cool thing about Makazze, is that he's done it in this LXEB Blade system, because think logically, if he'd have actually stayed in Navi Junior, he'd probably also be potentially a star right now in foot, but they'd be playing a very different brand of Counter-Strike, and I don't think he'd get a lot of the credit, because actually that's the thing I do think is very impressive about what he's done, is I could see someone being like a hard entry type player, a playmaker type player in a Blade system, and like I say, you just bait the guy, and then the rest of the players play the tactical stuff. I actually think he's also gotten like way better at his decision making. I thought in the last season, sometimes he would just be like mad aggressive, but it looked like, went a step too far. His game looked beautiful in this tournament. Like, the joke is, now you do look at Navi, and even though I don't think anyone actually thinks they can win the major, you sort of do see what Blade meant though, of like why he was sort of like, he's going to give like this roster one more season, as it were, and see if he can win championships. Now look, true, I would obviously say to him, mate, when we say you weren't going to win trophies, that's because we didn't assume you would play these teams on the playoff front, did we? Like, anytime we say a comment like that, this team won't win in LAN, we mean you won't beat Falcons into Vitality with the MOUZ, we more mean that. But even so, look, no one thought he could do it, and they did do it, and this guy's the reason why.
Yeah, they weren't.
Like, if you had just only had the wonderful performance, they probably could have lost or had a close fight. Like, that's the whole reason it was so epic, is this guy came along too.
Yeah, they weren't favourites going into playoffs, and that was obviously Spirit MOUZ. They play neither one. Both them drop in their quarterfinals, and they play what? Mongols, Foot, Aurora. Like, realistically, let's put it this way. I would have clowned Aurora for this sort of lineup. If the Turkish fans were all celebrating like they just won the major, I would have kind of taken the piss a bit. And it is a weaker field. But the key here is, I think you touched on it, Duncan, it was the consistency of Makazze. Because we've seen him have playoff specifically playoff runs that were really strong, but then group stages he's often found wanting. We've seen series where he's had stupidly good map, bad map, mid map, and they lose 2-1. You know, he's had these sorts of things. In this event, firstly, he was great in the online stage, he was great in the playoff stage, he was pretty much a fixture of their game from start to finish, and that way, when you do have the inconsistencies Na'Vi are famous for right now, which is to say, Imma I can't bet on, Wonderful I can't bet on, Bit I can't bet. I just cannot guarantee any of them will show up in any series. Well, guess what? All three of them can take it in turns if Makazze is going to be a stud in all three playoff series. Now, he did straight up carry the first one. He won the first one. The second one, Imma, we've got time for you to wait a series, then start fragging people in the back. And then the third of those series is the Wonderful Grand Final. Yeah, all of a sudden, Wonderful, who was fine to disappearing in the semi, all of a sudden, bang, he can take over a game. And yeah, you still have the same foundation, the rock-solid openers. The CT side playmaking, I think, was also one of the things that impressed me from him. It's not so much, we know he's going to be aggressive on certain maps, like on Ancient, he's going to throw himself down mid and die so Imma can get a single trade kill, and sometimes it looks a bit stupid. But on other maps, like I saw some Mirage maps where he was not as quick to die in Con, and he got massive multi-kills off stairs, and you're like, yeah, that's what he can do with his aim. And with his ability to take fights. Like, he's really sharp and really intuitive in those fights. It's just about getting to them. And then we see, massive carrying, great success, and Na'Vi finally get a win, and he gets his MVP. It's a great combo. It's a great concoction.
Let me ask you the same question, though. Is he going to do it again?
That's the part where I'm concerned, because I can see him maintaining a 130 type of playoff rating against better teams, especially. I do not see him doing. I wish, but he's too young, too raw. I still think there's some time to wait for that. He can probably maintain a more consistent level just across events. I mean, he's come into Rotterdam and dropped a 130 in his opening series. Like, I'm sure he'll find a more consistent floor to his game with this confidence, with the play we've seen. But no, I do think actually hard carrying throughout a playoff run will not happen in the same way, especially against tougher teams. But this is better. Yeah. This is an improvement for Na'Vi, a market improvement.
It's a game changer, though. Here's the thing for me. You don't have to do it for a whole tournament. I think these numbers are unsustainable. This would be like, put it this way, if Nico did this, would be like, wow, he's back on his game. You wouldn't expect that every tournament, though. So I would say instead I think you nailed it. I just need this for like a series. Just like if you play like, I'll give an example. If you did play like MOUZ in a semi, if you do this in a series, you can win. Now that is a game changer for Na'Vi, where actually I have them usually losing to the elite teams,
I'd say it's more correlated with the overall performance of the team. Because I think the reason I say it wasn't shocking from him to reach the numbers, I think it was a lot more impressive to see the level of consistency. But I think that is very closely correlated with the play of Na'Vi in general, as a team, as a unit. I think this is not a team that relies on one person. Obviously, one person can help, but we did see flashes in late 2025, especially at the major, from Makazze doing stuff like that, right? His highest rated LAN map ever was against FaZe at the major. You had an Ancient with 21-8, like 2.54 or whatever, and then a 13-3 win over Fury, which is his third highest rated LAN map, and then the Mongols one from EPL was number 2. So I think we've seen the flashes. The main difference for me is kind of what T started talking about here, is the fact that you could clearly tell that he's becoming a lot more intelligent, and he's becoming a lot more comfortable within the system, to the point where he feels he has freedom, but he doesn't go and kill himself instantly. And one of the Mirage is a great example, by the way, because he's a top 7 highest rated short player since the start of this year. And we are counting, by the way, all the, players like Axel, like Loanex, like Cobra Zero, and people like this in the mix are above him. Some of them not even playing to the same level of competition that he's playing against. So he's one of the best short players. He's one of the best mid players on Ancient as well. He just has these maps where he can be the specialist. So I completely agree. I feel like he doesn't need to be the number one guy that's going to carry Na'Vi every single time, but you have someone that you can rely on on specific maps to be your guy, right? Kind of like what Axel was for Cloud9 years ago on Mirage when he was short. For example, you just knew Axel would have a good game there. And now you can just put your money that Makazze might be able to win them an Ancient, even if the team is struggling a bit. He might be able to win them a Mirage, even if the team is struggling a bit. For me, that is the definition of a star player. Someone that can turn around the odds and win the game, even when the team is not functioning. But I would still say the foundation of the team and just the system of Blade and Alexi and the work they've put with him has made him a lot more intelligent as a player. And thus, we are seeing more consistency out of him. I wouldn't necessarily say that he's 10 times better than he was last year. Can he do it again? Maybe if he has the same level of playing field, right? If Vitality are not there and Falcons are not there, maybe he can do it again if Na'Vi functions. I'm not past the fact that he can have another event that he's feeling that good individually in. I am questioning if Navi are going to have another event that they dominate teams to the same extent to allow them to actually, have the same numbers.
Yeah, that's the other part of this. What do we think of Navi off the back of this EPL? Like, does this really change how we see them? Do we still actually have, like, any sort of idea of what they actually should be? Like, are they a top 5 team, top 6 team? I don't see it yet, because I've yet to see them tested. Like, personally for me, this is a Navi who have got a nice bracket and won out. Like, fascinating, brilliant, that's all well and good, but it's not really what I need to be assured that Navi have it all figured out. The Blade's master plan, as it always gets referred to as, has come into effect again, and we've figured out the best way to use these pieces, and look, the chessboard is laid out in front of you. Just watch this masterful destruction. I'm not sure I'm there yet. Like, I don't know.
That's why, to me, also the wonderful final was another interesting element. Like, if any of, again, I don't need all that. Just give me like half of that. Give me that every now and then. And that is a game changer too, because you saw how like effective it was. Like, that was one of the reasons you just couldn't beat them in that final. Like, wonderful, just every time he needed the easy kill, he always got it every single time, it felt like. So here's the key thing for me. What I do think is this. Look, the main problem everyone has is Vitality's in the way. So if Vitality comes to the event, you're not winning the event. That's just realistic. But I'll tell you what, I think actually right now, if they can get a little bit of this performance, like some more consistency from Makazze, just a little bit better, not as good as the final, but halfway between where Wonderful was and where he was in that final. The difference is I could see NAVI being one of the teams that essentially like profit opportunistically off how messy the teams below Vitality are. Like those other ones, like at the moment we do that whole, there isn't an elite group after that actually. Like realistically, that next group, if you put Vitality in the next final, they could be playing any of the following. They could be playing Falcons or Furia or Paravision or Navi or MOUZ. It could be anyone. Spirit maybe can get there, we're not even quite sure. So the difference is if Navi can be like a more stable affair, I could see them sort of like upsetting those teams, winning out, making semis and finals. That could be cool. The good thing also, by the way, another reason I'm biased towards Navi over some of the other teams that maybe should change roster, that's really pleasant to watch. It's really enjoyable and cerebrally tickling to watch them play a game. And then they've got good players who do their job. So I actually find them quite a pleasant team to enjoy watching.
You know what's one of the main issues? I think, Duncan, you would agree with me on that one. I think when you're talking about the veto of Navi, the map pool at times could be a little bit concerning, which is a bit weird because when you look at it on paper.
By the way, that's why the thing you said about him on Mirage is so big, mate. He basically won them the Mirages that now makes their record look all right. They had a terrible record before this tournament,
Yeah, exactly. And now you're looking at Mirage, they've won 4 in a row. You're looking at Dust, they've won 4 in a row. Anubis, which is statistically supposed to be their worst bar overpass, which is the permaban. They've actually played 2 close maps against Aurora and Paravision, and they've beat Aurora once, and these are 2 of the best Anubis teams. So in general, they have a strong veto, but one of the main issues that I think Navi has right now is that they don't have one map that they can rely on to be their safe go-to, right? And you look at a lot of the series, because they've won 5 series in a row right now. Even if you want to just talk the best of 3s, we're not talking about the BO5 grand final against Aurora, because you do end up losing Anubis against them. It's a BO5, it's fine. They win against Bait in a 2-1 fashion. They pick Ancient, and they lose it. They win against Foot in a 2-1 fashion. They pick Ancient, and they lose it. They beat 3D Max 2-1. They pick Inferno, and they lose it. So in 3 of the series that they've won out of the last 5, they've actually lost their map pick. And 2 of these maps are Ancients, where Makazze is one of the best players in the world, and he's given you all of that advantage, and you're still unable to find a comfortable ground to be able to punish. Now, sure, you're playing against different teams ban different stuff, but you technically have 6 maps that you're decent on, but you don't have one map that you're great on, which I think could be a bit of a stoppage for Navi if they want to, be that 3rd, 4th best team in the world and win events when Vitality don't win events or whatever. It's ultimately going to be an issue because you can beat a lot of the top teams on any map, but they can also beat you on any map. Is there a map on which you'd put your money on that Navi can't lose to anyone? Like you would put your money on Aurora, for example, that they can beat they can beat any team on Anubis most of the time. Is there such a map for Navi? Because I'm not sure if there is.
Yeah, it feels like after these Pro League finals, we want to start, at least personally, I want to start believing they're Mirage again. That coming back into the pool. I like the idea that they can, you talk about, they pick a map against 3 Max, lose it, they still win the series 2-1. It's because they are good on Mirage, they are good on Inferno, they are good on Ancient.
And they have a deep map pool, but
they are deep.
It is sometimes lacking. That's the thing. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's not a bad place to be, not a terrible place to be. I think if they revive a bit of their Mirage, they're back in, truly having that to pick. And hell, because everyone wants to play it, you can always leave it. And if you're picking Ancient, because if you think you have a tech in terms of a player who's just going to win it for you, yeah, I think there's a certain edge they can have there. So I'm not as worried about the map pool. I'm just concerned about, will I get, quite importantly, a star level AWPer? Will I have another star rifler in any series, any given series? Because Bit and Immo have a tendency to be absolute nothings in certain games. Like, I need to know I've got more than just Makazze to rely on if I want them to be challenging, let's say, for second place. Like, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about everyone bar Vitality. We're talking about second place. That's high. Like, for me, I think the dream right now, in terms of what I have actually seen, is they become the new MOUZ. Like, almost locked for a semi-final.
Yeah,
sure.
Win the event with the weak field. Can make a grand final here and there if they get the really big upset performance. Like, if everyone's hitting, all the pieces are hitting exactly right, yeah, they could upset a Falcons Vitality in a semi, make a grand final, play the other one and lose. But that's not a bad place to be. I think, especially if you can then start considering what you can make as a little upgrade to your roster, see what players are available. That's not a terrible space to find yourself in if you already have a great IGL, great coach, and a very legit star opener.
Also, we all said, because it's just fair as well, on a team level, they did at the major what Makazze did here. They overperformed, so they looked too good. And a lot of us thought, if you're going off that, you're never going to, it's not going to be satisfying. You're not going to live up to that level. But I will say this, they're not going to get to that level. That was like a peak performance. But if you remember, just before that major, specifically Makazze was the one that was in everyone's crosshairs, that they all wanted removed, and everyone was saying it hasn't worked and we should change the play. That's the player everyone wanted in the roster move. The difference now is that'd be one of the players you'd hold on to. If you're going to make a roster move now in Navi after this next major, that's a piece you probably keep and trust that you can keep developing, and then you try someone else out. That's where you make the moves. I think that's a significant change.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to add one other thing to the conversation, because I think Makazze played well. I think with Wonderful, we're probably having the same conversation too. We know the ceiling is a little bit high, but can the floor get a little bit higher? Ema actually is the one that I am concerned about whether he's going to be able to replicate what he did at EPO. Because I think at EPO, even though he was hot and cold, he did register the best LAN map in his career at that event against Foot, right, on Mirage. So when you have Ema show up, suddenly it feels like the game is so much easier to control, right? Especially because we're given Mirage as an example. We're talking Navi. Connector player is Ema. Short player is Makazze. When Ema, who's the second guy on the team that talks the most, according to a lot of people, and he was even rumored to, be the, I guess, next IGL after Alexi gets removed, allegedly, by a lot of people, but we know he's a big voice on the team and gives a lot of ideas. When the game is going well for him, he's providing a lot of ideas mid-round. He's killing 2-3 people per round, which is, fantastic for Navi. And then you feel like the team is just functioning a lot more when you have 2-star rifles. Bit is playing well as an anchor. Wonderful is hitting shots every now and then, but he doesn't even have to step it up as much. I think if you have Makazze and Ema being consistent for Navi, this is the foundation that you need for this team to be successful. I am very excited about Makazze. I really am, because I feel like we finally have someone playing on Navi that has X Factor, probably for the first time since Simple, to that extent, someone that can just go in and be very, very exciting and mechanically outsmart and outplay everyone on the other side. Well, mechanically outsmart doesn't really exist, but you get the point. But I think he can't do it alone. I still think he needs a little bit of support because of what the system is. And if Ema is able to be a little bit more consistent, this is where I think Navi can be truly dangerous, even if Wonderful still has his, hot and cold moments. Ema and Makazze can do a lot.
I can tell you very simply, he's had the same exact issue the whole time he's been in Navi. He just has some maps, he's like half the map pool he's really good on, and then half the map pool he kind of sucks on. It was the same, look, it was different maps in the past, but if you go look, there's a couple of maps he's really good on, you can guarantee he's going to give you a big performance and be their best player. There's some ways just not very good, and it actually does, a bit like in the past in 2024, it does sync up with some of the areas where they have problems on Navi.
Ema's he's an interesting player. Every time I talk about him, I usually have one new Romanian in my DMs.
Don't you feel like he's one of those players where, here's the weird thing for me, Kingt. People find him this really divisive player. I don't get it, because I've never been on either side. I've never thought he sucked. I never thought he was like Nico. But for some reason, you have to believe one or the other, it feels like, if you're out there in the scene. For me, he's just like an above average rifler. Like I say, whereas maps he's very good on, maps that he's not so good on, there's not a diss to that. He could be replaced, but the question, like this is how you know he's a legit player, is who are you going to replace him with? I'm not just having you bring anyone in. But if you can bring in the good enough player, I'm not against removing a player like that.
No, my take with him has always been, I used to give the full nuance balance, proper pros and cons take. I stopped doing it a while ago because it's firstly not as funny, and secondly, no one cared about the nice things I had to say anyway. So basically, I think he's incredibly smart, intelligent, and in terms of textbook rifle play, he does so many things super well. As far as his timing, when he fights, why he fights, there's so much good logic to his game. Yes. It's just he's mechanically just not up to it. I just don't think he's that sharp. And a lot of the time when I see him have massive pop-up maps, he is just nailing so many things. And it's clearly he's also calling his shots to a certain extent, and he's getting it right every time. I'm talking about he's shooting people who are flash, shooting people in the back. He's trading in perfect timing when there's only one guy shooting the guy. He's all of a sudden, bang, he's got the free trade. He stays alive. He can find another one. He's good in a lot of ways. It's just he isn't sharp enough for me. Like, if I get a rifler in his spots, in his positions on Navi, who can map to map, even if he's not got the right read, can just bail himself out with a headshot, I'd be happier. And Imma very rarely is able to do that. So that's always been my take for him. And sure, most of the time I just say, he can't shoot, he's a bum, get him out, because it's funnier and easier. But realistically, I do think there are players who would play his roles more effectively, more consistently, because they have other weapons in their arsenal, essentially.
Sure. I think that the valuable, I guess, fruit for thought there is what he's bringing in terms of ideas and, correct way of playing the game, outweighing the fact that he's not the sharpest guy out there. Because I agree, I don't think he's the sharpest aimer in the world. He's good, but some might say that even on Gamer Legion at times there was people that pure aim wise were even better than him. But he's very good at positioning himself, he's very good at creating space, and he is, as you said, very intelligent as a player. Now the question is, if you remove him, can you bring someone that at least doesn't downgrade the ideas as much, but improves mechanically? And this is where we're going back to what you said, Duncan. I don't think there's a lot of players right now that you can bring in that will be the second voice to the team, will have the experience and know how to play textbook Counter-Strike, can comply with the system, and still be able to pop off every now and then and be mechanically a lot better than him.
And also, he looks like a Romanian Vanilla Ice.
Right, sure, that as well, I guess.
One of my secrets is how I deliver it. I make it sound like I'm making a real statement, but it's something ridiculous, isn't it? Don't worry about it. Whenever I see that hair, bro, the amount of hairspray is crazy, isn't it? I know.
Just to go put a headset on as well.
I know, never exactly. Look at the hair.
Exactly. Surely when you take it off, it has that dip in the middle where you look like a fucking dickhead if you go out,
Yeah, the problems we wish. Well, I wished I had. Yeah, it must be a good problem to have.
I've seen it on guys who don't have hair though. It just dents the skin, doesn't it?
No, do you know for such a long time actually, when I was a teenager, I thought that my head was actually curved in. Have you seen the Tyler 1 picture? I thought my skull was deformed for a second. I was so terrified when I was like 18 or 19. I was like, Jesus Christ, what
have I been Bulgarian? What's going on? All right, we've talked a lot about teams and like players and changes that could be made. Let's move on to a team who I have finally caved on. I was the last remaining kind of MOUZ defender for a while, it felt like.
So let's just check. It took him about a month. Okay, right, okay. That's all it took. Yeah. It's over already. All it took was a beautiful foot win, and now it's over for you.
Everyone was asking them to cut players 8 months ago.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, true.
And I was sticking out. I was just like, until they stop making top fours, until they stop being consistently elite in that sense, I don't want to make moves. Well, guess what? They've lost to now basically 3 different teams that I didn't think were that impressive. They lost to Foot in a quarterfinal. Yes. A lot of people are still trying to bring up the MOUZ stage choker narrative. Like they haven't really been a stage choking team, like at all. They just lose to specific opponents in the semis. They win their quarterfinals time and time again. And this Foot game was a classic layup. Like Foot, notoriously not that great in the clutch, not that great in the late round. They had a surprisingly good late round set of performances in the groups, but this is now on the stage. Like then you shouldn't be getting outclassed late game by Krabny and Coolio. Like if you're Xertion, if you're Brolan, forget who the real IGL is sometimes. If you're Cyclone, like these should be games you can close out. But I'm kind of done with them. I've decided I'm going to make a move. I'm going to change something up. So I'm looking for some advice here from the two of you. Let's pretend I'm the MOUZ GM. How should I structure this rebuild? What sort of players should I be looking for? And honestly, just to start off with, where are we making our cuts? Let's be brutal. Let's be quick. Like, who is getting removed from this roster?
I'll tell you an interesting detail that might add to this conversation. I saw the other day a clip on social media. I forget who filmed this. It might have been Blast and Splasters going on, where they were asking The question was, they were asking Magix and Donk from Spirit, which of these teams would you like upgrade to put Molodoi on for the ARPA? And an interesting detail is, it might have been Tanir and Donk, but I know it was Donk and someone. Whoever the other person was, maybe it was Tanir. They initially, when they said MOUZ, were like, yeah, because their logic was like Molodoi is better than Torji. But Donk made a point that I thought was quite a good one, actually, which is they don't really use Torji, though, in MOUZ as like the hard ARPA, who's like, like the superstar. If anything, he is on the T side more like the supportive ARPA, even though I hate that terminology. It's why he's always done all his work on CT side. So I do think within MOUZ, it's not the case that you just bring in like a better ARPA and it would just fix things immediately. I mean, I imagine it would mess other people's roles up. So it's one of the reasons why, actually, even though I'm not a massive Torji fan, I'm also not really a hater. Like, I think he does an all right job on this team. Unfortunately, it's actually some of my darlings, as it were, that I have to kill in this analogy. Like, I'm sorry, I do think in terms of pure talent, I think Xerxes might be the best player on the team, but the amount of times I feel like he's the one when they play badly that just goes to shit, it seems like that's almost like a hard correlation at this point in time. Like, he clearly has some sort of issues being as good as he can be and like hitting his potential. So, but then the problem that then becomes, who am I going to bring in instead of that? Like, it has to be a big name for me. I'm not just going to take a random there. Like, that'd have to be like some like Twists type players going to have to come in if I want a big boy like that to replace him. So I think it is still really hard to suggest names. So I think it's actually better if, as you say, we just identify the person we're going to take out, because I think it's going to be hard to. Because the other problem, I always bring this up with MOUZ, is they don't sign massive name players, unfortunately. Like the joke is actually Brolan joining this team might be the biggest name player that's joined the team in years.
Yeah, I mean the Spinks move was a pretty big deal, but
you're true. That's a fair one, sure. But even in that case, that was also because, if you remember, it was implied no other team wanted him at the time. Like it was sort of limited options, wasn't it?
Opportunistic. Yeah, that was the case. Yeah.
Yes.
I think the question is direction-wise, and me and Duncan discussed that a couple days ago. Direction-wise, if you're MOUZ, what type of a team do you want to be? Do you want to be a title contender? Because if you want to be a title contender for the first time probably in the history of this organization, just be a team that competes to be the #1 team in the world, then I agree, you need a big signing, right? You need someone to be the leader of the team in very important games. But this is not what MOUZ has been. I think probably Spinks' signing was the blockbuster move for them, one of the biggest blockbuster moves that they've had for the last, 7-8 years, because everyone else is just coming in from the academy. And then you have Brolan, right? Maybe Zippix, interestingly enough, was another big move as the assistant coach, name value wise. I do agree on the Torji angle. I don't think he's the one to be blamed, because I feel like people underestimate how incredibly difficult it is to open a team where you have Brolan, who's an IGL, that's a space taken one, Exertion, who's a top, north of 30% attempts on T sides. And then you have Spinks, who doesn't want to be too aggressive on the lurks, but he also wants to have some freedom every now and then. One of the reasons that they wouldn't get on the same page on Vitality, right? So I think for Torji, it's very difficult to actually do more on T sides than he actually is doing already. CT side wise, I think he's been excellent. You're looking at over 70% success on 26.2% entry attempts in 2026. He's been doing a great job. I feel like the biggest issue when it comes down to MOUZ is not the player quality per se, is the capability of players to play the same way when the odds are very, very stacked and very high as they would in a group stage game. And Exertion is a great example, because I do agree with you, Duncan. I think he is the most skilled player on this team, maybe alongside Spinks. One of the main issues when it comes down to Exertion is the fact that you can clearly tell that there is a downward spiral when he plays against the title contenders. When you enter top 5 teams, his ratings go down. His decision making starts being a little bit more volatile. Maybe he starts being a little bit more hesitant. And with the entire team, you kind of feel that vibe that when an important game comes down and MOUZ are on the ropes, sometimes there isn't anyone to make a move. And actually, for my money, I would say Torji is the only one that I would exclude from that, because I think he's the only one that's actually been trying to switch it up when the entire team just doesn't want to play to win, but is trying to play not to lose, and no one wants to be the guy that makes a mistake. Torji, I think, is the one that takes the initiative and actually does try to do something. Whereas I feel like Exertion and Spinks should also be two of the people that are doing this. And that's one of the reasons I loved Exertion initially when he joined MOUZ, because on a map like Overpass, for example, on the CT side, you can very easily tell what the character of a player and what the character of a team is by the way that they play CT side. How aggressive are they going to be? Do they have depth? Do they want to go and fight? Or they just want to play the safer angles and just pray for the best? Exertion initially was one of these guys that were going to be very proactive around the map. Always look for fights, always look for space. And this, I think, up to this date, sometimes is really helping MOUZ. But whenever they face off against a very good overpass team, or it's a tough game, or they're down and they don't want to lose a key round, you just don't see that willingness to take a chance, which is, I think, what they're lacking right now, quite frankly. I feel like they have good pieces. I think it's a very well-playing team. They just lack, I think, a little bit of bravery. Does that get fixed with a roster change?
Maybe the joke is they could probably use Makazze.
They would very much benefit from having a player like Makazze. Thing is, who do you bring that is not Makazze that fits the profile?
Yeah, so the part that's interesting to me is that for a long time the conversation has been this team needs a change in terms of on the server leadership. Now, you've touched on it essentially there. We've talked about a guy's brave, a guy who's, bold, will not shrivel, will not shrink up, will not start playing the passive lines, right? Now, potentially that could come in the form of an IGL who, rather than necessarily being the star rifle who does all the, follow my example shit, just kind of whips them into shape a bit, doesn't lose his mojo, has maybe a bit more charisma about him than Brolan maybe in those big moments, can keep the troops' morale high. Maybe that's the change. I've also seen a lot of speculation.
Is there any names coming to mind?
This is the problem. There's also been a lot of speculation that perhaps Xerxes becomes the Egil of the team, then you find a different rifler in the star rifle spots. The problem I have, and I explained this on Snake and Banter, I don't think they can make that kind of move. This IGL who comes in and just fixes everything without someone else just giving away theirs in the next off season. Without someone just giving up on their actually top, clearly ready and destined to lead a great team type of IGL. And there's not that many in the scene in the first place, but there's also probably not teams who'd give them up. There was a lot of lunacy surrounding, Lexi B speculation, benching him, getting Ima in. The only team or the only time I ever looked at that and celebrated was when I was pretending to be MOUZ's GM, and I'm like, oh, yes, please. Right. Yes, please, do it. Blame him, throw him out, scapegoat him, and we'll take him the same way we did Spinks. Otherwise, it's tough. And the last suggestion I made was literally on Monday on a show. I just went, you know what? I would today, if I just want to change things up and I'm the GM, I'm just promoting Zelex. I'm giving Xerxes the reins temporarily, just give him the reins until the end of the season. Then we reassess where the market's at. We reassess who's been left out in the cold, who's been ostracized, and we can take them in and build something better. Maybe a Kixan who showed potential.
I was actually going to say the same
leader.
thing. If they kick him because obviously people know Nico IGL's probably coming at some point. That's I think a lot of teams should probably consider him. In fact, if you actually look at this particular case, though, Kingt, he's also a fragging IGL too. I also could see him actually replacing Brolan quite well.
Yeah, and then you can have the conversation there at the end of the season. Do we want to keep him and keep Xerxes with him and hope that he finds his better place? Send Zelex back down to the academy to keep maturing? Or at that point, do we look at Zelex and go, fuck, he's been so good, he's been so talented, it's clearly translated. We might have to have an awkward conversation in our rifle corps. It's a decision that I think can be delayed to the end of the season, but I do feel like something has to happen now just to spark something.
I'd say with Zelex, I really like Zelex. I think the issue there would be that, as you said, you would have to really switch things up around within the team, right? Because if you bring in a star player, because for those of you that don't know, he's a 17-year-old Hungarian on MOUZ NXT right now who is a star player, right? He's an aggressive guy on T-sides, but not necessarily the soldier that's going to sacrifice himself. He's more of a refrag type of guy on T-side, and then star player on CT. But if you bring him on this team to replace supposedly Brolan is a soldier on T-side and he's an anchor on CT sides. So if you want to use someone like this and not just bury him under, the stress of going through an anchor change and being shit for a year, and if you want an example, Snow went through the same thing when he got promoted to play for Pain, and he was very, very bad statistically for a very long time, and he's still struggling to recover. I think it's very tricky when you're promoting a star player from an academy and you don't let him have the same spots as he did on the academy on the main team. Like Makazze, for example, had the experience of playing tier 2 Counter-Strike, even though he was on an academy, because Navi Junior was just one of the best tier 2 teams at some point. And still they gave him most of the roles that he had, if not all the roles that he had on the academy team, to make sure that the transition is a little bit swifter. So if you're Zelex and you're being promoted, it's kind of like the same thing that Navi needed, was a little bit of spark. If you want to look for the academy player to try and get that, you need to find someone to sacrifice, which in this case, I think the only realistic options would be Spinks and Exertion, because they are the people that need to sacrifice. Probably Exertion is going to have to be the soldier and sacrifice himself more, or Spinks will have to give up some of his CT side positions or whatever. So I don't really know if even this is an angle that they go for, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it. It's just that people will have to sacrifice a lot if you bring this guy in, because you don't want to just get him in and ruin his career and ruin his confidence because he needs to play some roles that he hasn't played before against tier 1 teams.
They already tried that. They did literally bring him in to stand in Katowice last year.
Yeah.
He played shit roles, played like shit, and I was kind of like looking at it like, this is the first time I've watched him. So at that point I hadn't watched him in the academy, and I was like, that's not a pretty look. Thankfully in the academy's developed into something pretty strong, but no, I would as a GM looking down on this be like, my other option is to just sit here and be bad until the end of the season, like have no real chance at any titles or any silverware, not even any chance to make top 4s and grand finals. When the major comes around, I'll be lucky to make it out that Swiss. Like, I'd rather be lucky to make it out the Swiss with an academy kid flashing some potential rather than just sitting here and just waiting for it.
If we're talking role-wise, they just get the Spanish guy from their academy, Joey
makes more sense for roles. It's
who's just going to sacrifice himself and play anchor.
Yeah, but Zelix is the stud. He's the one I'd also talk about if I needed money to make a move. Like if I'm trying to move some academy kids for some cash, like if I can promote Zelix to my main team, let him drop a 115 at 17 years old. Holy crap, someone's going to come give me a bag for that kid.
I'm thinking, if you're MOUZ, by the way, can we explore the angle? Because a lot of people were talking about it when we were discussing Liquid. Explore the angle of just poaching Foot and try and get someone out of there. Maybe.
The entire team? Or a
I wouldn't say, no, I wouldn't say the entire team, but if you want to go for the angle, if we just want to have a more proactive in-game leader, you can try Krabini out. If you want to explore the angle of we just need someone to be a soldier and, more aggressive and brave type of player, you can just get the replacement that Foot got for Makazze and just go for low and X. But you have a couple of options of younger guys if you want to switch things up that probably won't be as expensive, I guess.
I like the Krabini one. I actually think low-key, he's actually the guy. Everyone else has different opinions about which of the other ones are good. I think actually Krabini's the guy who's impressed the most in that team.
Yeah, the problem I have with that idea is they're not cheap now. Yeah. They're not cheap anymore. No. This is an asset that is appreciating second by second. And
you also have to remember,
if you want to win trophies.
You have to remember as well, another thing MOUZ was relying on, it's why people made that apparently fake rumor about PR, is they have also abused not just having academy players, but then using the buyback system if they go elsewhere. So that's one area that I would have to ask the question, which is, if the buyout, because remember, this guy is the fragging IGL, and for a team that has now locked down the rest of the squad, and supposedly they have that contract clause where they can't sell the core, right? I'd imagine they're not going to let you get that guy for like 200k. That's going to be like some like 900k type buyout. So I also wonder, I haven't had any indication MOUZ is willing to do that, unfortunately. Again, in the Spinks case, we don't know what happened there, but I imagine they got a cheap deal. It sounds like there wasn't many bidders,
Yeah, that it was opportunistic. It was the moment to buy. Like the stock had never been lower on Spinks, and yeah, that's why I've always hinted or intimated that I would only see them getting truly better, like immediately guaranteed that move makes you better, if someone else creates that situation again. If we get those kind of rumors about a player and internal dysfunction, the player sits on the bench and no one else really wants them, that's the only way I see it guaranteed to happen. But I've laid out some ways I think you could take some risks. And financial risk is a big one. Like, it's a big financial risk if you want to go just poach a Foot player right now. If you could have done it 4 months ago, maybe. But unfortunately, we're now...
Oh, by the way, we can tie the two conversations together. To be fair, we're assuming that this move would happen after the major, right? I assume they're going to play out the season, try it out at the major. They're probably going to be deluded and think they make an epic run. If they don't, then it's time to make the move, right? I'll tell you an obvious way you could like synergize the two. What if there is a world where someone like NAVI kicks Zimmer? Maybe you try a player like that.
Yeah, and he can be your IGL as well, because he was
also do that angle
option
too
before. Also, this is getting even better as we were speaking, by the way, because I just took a look, and MOUZ are currently being 0-2 by the Mongols. Yeah, they've almost lost to the Mongols, so this is getting better. But yeah, I think with MOUZ is difficult to say, because
which, by the way, is significant, because notice that was the problem always with that whole discussion point of like, but they're always top 4. Okay, cool, but the second they aren't, though, that none of that applies anymore. All of a sudden, everything of that goes out the window, and now as we're doing this episode, suddenly everyone's on the chopping block, man. Like everyone could go for different reasons. rotations or change up. That's the downside. If the only justification is the placing, not how they're playing the game, what the role, then the second that goes in. So I agree with Kingt. Even though it doesn't look like on paper it has, it's like, we've already had 158th. No, it's who you now lose to. You used to only lose to peak Falcons, greatest of all time vitality, Spirit of Donk was owning everyone. Like, you only lost to the creme de creme. Now you can lose to seemingly anyone in the top 15 in the right moment.
I think it's a sign of the morale of the team being a little bit down, which in some cases people might say could be a sign that there's some internal discussions going on. Now, this is only speculations, but
well, they baited us the other day, didn't they? I think it was, I can't remember if it was last night or this morning, but they had that post where it was like Cyclone, like, I'm leaving because I'm coming back with a new contract. Yeah. And they did that bait. So I even thought that was real at first, bro, because I was like, holy fuck, it's a bit of a bold move. But to be fair, you do need to change some. Oh, they haven't changed anything. Brilliant. Cool. Okay, great.
I mean, for me, this is just a sign that they're doubling down on Cyclone and Xyp9x, but they definitely recognize that there's something that's not working out, right? So it should just mean that we can start pivoting the conversation from, okay, are they going for another head coach, to who are they going to replace on the team? Because I doubt that they're just going to be happy with being the number 5.
But this way, in the same way as people think, and I agree, that FaZe cynically cut Neo because they don't want to make a player change this season. And then I think MOUZ, I agree with you, has done the opposite. I think by signing the same coaches again to a new contract, what you're actually saying is these are going to be the coaches, but I tell you what, the team might change in the future, but we'll let them pick the players probably.
Also, it's very different, because with FaZe, you could clearly identify that tactically the team was just not up to scratch with all the other tier 1 teams. With MOUZ, you couldn't say that. Even if you're the biggest MOUZ hater, you can't say that they don't know how to play proper Counter-Strike. You can more so say that mentally they're just checked out and they don't have someone to step in the big moments. Thus, I mean, I'm sorry, but the coach can't just get the mouse and the keyboard and just make the play for the players when it's an important moment. I can't really put that on Cyclone. It has to go on the players.
Yeah, no real doubts from me.
Yeah, but he also picks the players, though. So isn't it back on him again? See what I mean? So
I mean, I still want to give him credit because he picked up 60% of them when they were like 16, and he made them tier 1 players. So I think he's done his part, I'd say.
Yeah, no, he's done a good job. It's just now it's tough because now everyone expects you to go win titles somehow with this organ budget and resources.
That's the problem, Ted. You're right. If we're talking about his history, great, bang up job, excellent. The problem is, as a great philosopher called Janet Jackson once said, "What have you done for me lately?" Listen, no one will ever match my style on the desk for me. It'll never happen. Never be another Thorin.
That's really what ended up happening with Ash, though. Because Ash, we gave him credit, rifler after rifler. Sure. Then he spent a year floundering on the AWPA, and it all just fell apart. That could be Cyclone's downfall eventually. He hasn't started the cycle yet. He hasn't started making changes. Because every move he's made so far has worked.
Very different. I think it's very different. I think Cyclone has shown substantially more skills when it comes down to scouting. And don't get me wrong, I think Ash is not the worst scout ever. But in reality, the players that he's found out and he's created are probably Flamus, who he scouted from the Mega, and then probably Ime from Nexus, right? When you're thinking about it, Slant to some extent, but also almost everyone knew that Slant was a talent. PR he picked up from MOUZ NXT, so that's again MOUZ's work. I think Cyclone has just had such an impeccable track record with just spotting out talents and developing them into tier 1 players.
Out of point. Cyclone technically, based on his own actions, thought Dexter was a better IGL than Shuhei.
Now, see, that I cannot excuse. That I cannot excuse.
Point is, everyone's human. You know, everyone has their flaws.
I'm talking about scouting and creating good players.
Because, by the way, I'm not the only one who, when we do the discussion of Brawler and IGL, part of me does every time go, what if they picked up Shuhei? Oh, shit, they're the ones who picked him. Like, part of me does that every time I think of the IGL swap. Because, by the way, the one part about that people won't think about, they'll think, what would be the point in bringing Shuhei back? Because Shuhei would replace Brolan. Remember, Brolan was, in theory, on paper, would have been replaced by Spinks, but he became the IGL. Yes. I'd like to see Shuhei lead a mouse that has Spinks on it, bro, as the lurker. Now, that would be very interesting. I don't think it's going to happen for obvious reasons. And at this point in time, that ship seems like it's sailed. And then also, the fact that no one can ever tell us what radioactive thing this guy did means I doubt they're ever going to play together ever again. But just doing the on-paper thing, I always think about it.
Maybe everything that needs to happen is for Shuhei to go to a major final again. We've seen that MOUZ are alright to go back to their exes the moment that they get hired for a better job. They did it with Shuhei once, where they removed him after MOUZ NXT and they got him after Gamer Legion. Maybe if Liquid have a couple good months.
What did he do, though? What was it like, Cyclone? You ain't my dad. So, how dare you say that? I brought you into this team. I gave you life as an in-game leader. Before me, you were just fucking one fluke flash in the pan little bitch on Game of Legion. I gave you all this and you dare say that to me? Get the fuck out. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take the least appropriate. Fucking Brolan can do your job. Get in here, Brolan. Just fucking do what I say. You're still just an entry player, you bitch, but you're going to do what I say. We're going to prove you wrong. Like, clip that, someone. That was pretty good. Clip that and send it to Cycle. There you go.
You know what that is? That's kind of like,
ask him how close was I? Was I on the point? Was I on, did I
I think it was I think it was quite accurate. Yeah. Imagine you're maths teacher in high school that has that one favorite student that you want to send to the I don't know, maths competition, but then that student acts with attitude and you're like, you get out of here. Bob is gonna do your job, and then Bob is just staring at you and he has straight threes or C's or whatever, whichever country you live in maths, and you're like, Bob is gonna do a fine enough job. Bob, get your ass over there.
Yeah, the funny part is that immediately Bob wins the first Olympiad or whatever he signs up for. At that point, if you're the other kid, you're like, fuck, maybe I am a fraud. And then where he ends up, nothing ever works out. I don't know. That's speculation. Blanket speculation. But anyway, we do have another thing to talk about, because over the course of the last, 24 hours? I don't know. I was asleep. I woke up, I started working. I finally checked Twitter and I was like, what is everyone crying about? What has happened? Well, it seems that Valve have had an idea. They've decided to go and make an update, which is weird because usually we celebrate an update, right? We're like, great, updates have been made. But have Valve lost the plot is my question. And the other part of that you probably can ask, do Valve know what game they make? Because I've played a lot of games where this exact mechanic exists, and it does kind of annoy me, but I'm like, yeah, the point of these games isn't to be a competitive shooter. It's supposed to be like a challenging, kind of gritty war game. It's got certain appeal, but it's not supposed to be a bit arcadey, which I guess competitive shooters always will be. I'm going to see if we can... Firstly, we're going to try and discuss how this meta has now changed, like how this is going to, in fact, impact pro play, and if it's going to have any potential positive ramifications. I know it's going to be hard for us to fathom. I know that I judged the temperature in the room before we started recording. That's going to be a difficult thing to do. But firstly, let's start off with this. Simply, how is this going to change pro play?
So I have a very long one to go on. Duncan, do you want to go first?
All right, mine is the most simple of all, which is I think in general it's a net negative, and I actually don't like almost any application I've seen. I'm going to give you an example. Even the ones that people have pointed out, like it'll stop people just like spamming or whatever. That already wasn't a massive problem in CS2. That's the weirdest part about it, especially if you're talking like CT spam. Like, to me, the most abusive spam in Counter-Strike 2 is when people who are the banana player on B Inferno just spam down the smokes when you do the early utility and they get a random kill. If you remember, Fury did it a bunch at the major when they played against Navi in that one game they won, right? Even so, that is like a calculated gamble. Like, you're giving up all your backup ammo when you do that. Also, by the way, if you ever spam like that and then like just before the clip runs out, they step through the smoke with two people, you get killed instantly. To me, there was already like a counterplay and sort of a balance to that. I never looked at that and went, this is ruining Counter-Strike. So I don't really know why that's presented as an upside. Then, obviously, built into the idea of you can't spam is what I think is a really negative thing, which is now it makes even small things like popping a vent on like Mirage, etc., now sort of unnecessarily more difficult, or a weird decision you have to calculate because now you have one less bullet if you don't reload. If you reload, you throw. You know what I mean? There's like, for example, the joke is all you've done now is when anyone plays like Mirage on Pistol, for example, you just don't pop the vent. Which is like, oh, you have to use your knife to do it or something, which is like, okay, what has that added to the game? And then lastly, to me, the most negative, and I feel like I was the first to see this, because when I was thinking through this post when it was released, I was trying to think through, as I usually do, not the immediate thing like that, like what happened to spamming. I was thinking, what would the other effects be that won't be immediately nailed? And the first thing I remember thinking was, this has already taken a fairly like fucked AWP, and isn't the AWP and being the AWP a role just like 1.2 times harder now? Like, it just seems unnecessarily harder, because remember, I already thought, I'm amazed more AWPers don't complain in interviews. Guys, our gun has a bullet range that means you can never miss a shot if all 5 players rush you. Like, that already makes AWPing hard. It's actually something we never even bring up when we talk about CSGO AWP versus CS2 AWP. This is just going to make AWPing even harder now. And again, actually now you can even argue, can you even spam with the AWP, etc.? Like, I could see so many ways this could be negative. So, for me, a lot of the positives It's not that they don't exist, but they're all hypothetical ones that I think would require a lot to prove. Now, I'll give you an example. People will say maybe actually the game shouldn't have to have an AWPer on every scene, right? Okay, that's an interesting idea to sort of like put out there and we'll spitball it or whatever. But actually revolutionise in CS so that teams don't need an AWPer. That's not a minor change, mate. That would probably be the biggest change in the history of professional Counter-Strike.
I don't think it's a change that is needed. That's the main thing. Because I was trying to put up a list of things that would be different now with this update. I don't actually think it changes as much for rifles.
I know what you mean, because it feels like you do go, can we please have 1 in 28 tick? They're like, I've taken spamming out the game and with clips don't. We're like, what? Who said that?
It's
what?
It's very weird. Because there's
cashback. Well,
there's other things that are more urgent. I think you don't need another fucking. What are these boxes where you negotiate with an arms dealer or whatever? You don't need another one of these. Even if I like the skins, like talk about the minimum loss bonus, something that we were all singing about in the first 2 years and everyone's forgotten about. Talk about the servers and how CS:GO comes out and the game is so much better.
I've figured it out. Since they figure, because it's actually what's brought them all their money in. They didn't make all their money at Valve from making CS the game, CS:GO.
Yeah.
What they made their money from was skins inside cases. So they've mistakenly thought that we want case opening mechanics for everything in the game. So actually now when they make an update, it's like a case. There's a thing that spins. Could be 128 tick. Oh, that's like the gold fucking knife. Could be an AWP skin. That's like make the fucking better maps. And then it's landed on a bison skin. Reloads are fucked now. Oh, shit. Well, you know, you take your chances. That's your luck.
You know what's the best thing about it? That now it's not even a case that you buy for 2.2 euros, like with the key and you open it. Now, if you want the good skin, if you get lucky and you get the good skin, you still need to pay like $80 or like $100 and something dollars to get the good skin. And it's
also,
even
it's now
more
confirmed
than it's in the market.
Gay Ben hates Molotov. There's the title of the episode. He already thought he was overrated. He's like, you know what? I'm going to put this motherfucker in the ground.
Not phonetically, of course, yeah.
No, exactly. Poor Modesty, by the way. That's one of the first things that I saw. I think if you're starting, the ways that this game, this update changes the game. Now, first of all, it's going to be a lot harder to be a CT side team now on maps that rely on T's taking space behind smokes, right? You're talking, Nuke is the best example, but just think about it for a second. Everyone's talking about outside Nuke. Now, first things first, now if the T's throw layered smokes, which is the 3 smokes that fall in a way that you can't break them with an HE, how are you going to know if there's people on the other side? That's going to make CTs either start gambling a lot more and just starting with a lot more people secret or pushing through smokes or just staying there and playing in the blind.
You could argue it'll make Nuke T-sided.
Yeah, no, it's going to provide more opportunities. I think it's going to force CTs to be more creative and it's going to force them to make more moves, which in general might make the map more T-sided. Think about Overpass. You're not going to be able to spam as much. Think about all the times that you've seen an AWPer hold an angle, get smoked, wait for the perfect timing, which is, again, knowledge. This is, again, some kind of skill that you build with time, knowing the timing when people would peek, and then fire a shot through the smoke and get a kill. Do you think AWPers are still going to take that chance? Now that they know that they take this chance, and for example, let's say you're playing Ancient, you take 2 of these shots through the smoke, and then you know you have 3 bullets, and people can rush you through the smoke because they can just count, and they know you're not going to hit the reload because you're
rushing, like you say. Yeah,
exactly.
Same thing on if you're playing on Nuke T side and you're the guy in the radio room. If you hear that one fucking anchor player on the ramp start spamming, you may as well just 2-man push. Like, what are the odds that he's reloaded? He's probably just now got like 10 bullets. You know,
exactly. And I think for AWPers, I'd say that they're very screwed up. Very screwed up. And I think one of the main things that a lot of people are not thinking about is, okay, the pro players, they will find a way to make this work probably, even if the AWPers are going to, be very harmed. Think about it as a viewer of the game. How many times have you gotten excited over a highlight of a kill through a smoke, through a wall, people spamming, non-scoping, quick scoping through smokes? Now imagine Counter-Strike without all of that sauce, because this is where we're going with this update on the pro level. Because these players, as much as they're sometimes filling the game and they want to go for the highlight, they're not idiots. And when they know they're going to get punished 9 out of 10 times for just firing shots through a smoke with an AWP, they'll just stop doing it because they want to take care of their ammo.
I'll give you an example, Ted. There's a historical example of this. When they first put that thing into CSGO, which wasn't there at the beginning, that you could see the traces really well, it did change how people fucked around with spams and smokes. It did. It actually did change pro player.
Yeah, exactly. And now, for example, everyone's getting excited. Another example I can think of, let's say you're playing Overpass OP on the CT side, you're in heaven and you're just wall banging the guy in connector. You're jumping to see him and then you're trying to land the bullet. Do you think Opers are going to keep doing that as much? All of these plays are just going to get sacrificed a lot more. Thus, I think it's going to become a little bit easier for the Ts to take space because CTs can't just take the gamble and spam as much through smokes, through walls, overpass, nuke. Anubis maybe to some extent in towards middle as well is going to get harmed. All of these maps are just going to be played in a much more careful way, which is the main issue here. If you are someone that is watching the game, you want it to be exciting, you want for the game to have risks, and then the risks, I guess, were lowered with the money and the fact that you have fewer rounds. Now with this, and with the game being even more punishing, it's becoming more tactical. But guess what? For everyone that's getting excited about it, because I'd say if you realize all of these things and you still say I prefer Counter-Strike just being a tactical game more so than being entertaining, that's great. I get entertained by seeing tactics as well. But in the end of the day, if you want it to be very tactical, think about the things that you're losing that you're usually getting very excited about. You're probably not going to see these things anymore.
By the way, I understand why people in the scene might imply this is strategical or tactical. Like, I'm sorry, I do not believe for 1 second that Valve devs...
No, I don't think they did it consciously.
Valve devs have fucking Velcro shoes. What are you talking about? I'm too good about quotables. Whatever. It is what it is. They don't even use shoelaces, motherfucker. They ain't tactical. What are you talking... It's like I said, I'm not even joking. I like half believe they're on some like Trump shit where they're just acting impulsively, and one of them just got his head banged off for the 50th time through a smoke in a public game on Mirage where the AWPer was just ordering him from window. And he's like, you know what? Fuck AWPers. And then he just did this, like, and it's going out like that. Press send. There you go. It's out. It's out now. Now let's see him do that to me.
It's DM's the PR guy. Like, write up a fucking fancy 3-paragraph bullshit to put in the update.
Use AI to make this sound good.
No, I my initial reaction to this was, I got a weird feeling like the T-side pistol rush just got better. Like, it just got better. Like, on almost every map, like, now not only can I rush with pistols, I can kind of, like, just hang out behind my smokes and stage. I can do a lot more on the T-side pistol rush. And a lot of sites just become more difficult to play, more difficult to hold. Everything feels a bit more T-sided. On the CT side, we're going to get a lot more, like, as you put it, like, safe play, Ted. It's like the way it popped into my head.
A lot more risky. It's like there's no way between. You either need to control the round fully or just stay behind.
Essentially, the way I'm seeing it, it's like we're just J-maxing the CT side. It's like you're going to fully gamble into your idea that you're going to push this as a group and take that space, like go ahead of your smokes, or you're playing behind them. Hope you're right, and if you're not, fuck it, we save.
Oh, by the way, you are right. I've even just realised that's the worst shit. Now, Jim, he already was. I always have said this is Jim at the beginning of every possible retake. Like the saves over this way. He's like looking like, are we gonna? Let's score. Let's save. He's like, even already, mate. Now he's gonna go. Well, I only have 2 bullets in the clip, so I've got to save now, haven't I? So I couldn't go in and get. There's 3 people on the site. What can I do? You do the math. Like, because I even think this. Here's what I want to know as well. You said about Monacy. At the moment, there's a million quotes and pros of people in the scene, but it's barely any AWPers. Have you noticed that? It's all like for example, again, little Donk, he had to say how it wasn't necessarily bad. Can I have Shiro's opinion on that? Not yours, Donk. Like, I understand why you might be in favour of it, mate. I want to know what Shiro thinks of it.
I think it's also speculation, and with all of these changes, you need to give the pros a little bit of time to play the game in order to see if it actually changes stuff or not. Because we can sit here and list things and be like, this sounds logical, this makes sense. In the end of the day, this is a video game. And there's a lot of people that put a lot of thought into it. So give them a little bit of time to see how it feels. And then we can actually determine whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. That's why I think it's a bad thing for the AWPers, straight up, because it just limits the possibilities and the options for them to be aggressive. I think this is the only conclusion that you can make as a set in stone is going to need the AWPers to change their approach to the game. Other than that, whether it's going to actually make such an impactful, difference to rifles when you have a gun round versus another gun round, probably not. Pro players rarely run out of ammo in a gun round either way, right? I think this is something that when level 4 face it, you just stop reloading the moment you shoot 4 bullets. So that's not going to change as much in these situations, but it's going to change things in other situations, which are a lot more rare, but on a pro level, on the highest level, these rare scenarios actually do make a difference. So yeah, ultimately I think we give it time, but as you said, Duncan, I'm trying to find a way in which I can justify Valve just making this decision because it was a mandatory thing and, it was something that they needed to resolve as quickly as possible. I just think as in a lot of the previous updates from Valve, there was other things that they could have addressed a little bit sooner than this, because I don't think there was a lot of people that were thinking about, the bullets needing a tweak.
Yeah, no, that's not on the list. That's not on my list. Even if I ignore the things people typically talk about, server, tick rates, anti-cheat stuff, like whatever. Like, just talk purely about like things that are in the game that might need addressing in terms of like balance. Like, yeah, I think the map pool is not in the best spot because I like a specific type of map. I like tactical maps. I like more interesting maps. I don't like 3-lane yellow maps. Like, that's just not my style. I don't think that the 5-7's in a great place as far as balance, really. I guess it's the only tool the CTs have to fight back in certain ways when the meta was balanced against them. But I feel like we've made enough changes to the other direction to the point the 5-7's now just broken. Like, it is done.
Yeah.
There are a lot of interesting little changes and tweaks could make to the balance of the game. This, as we started on, who asked for this? Why did you feel the need to change this? And does the game being more like, different other video games improve anything about CS? Like, we're playing Counter-Strike at the end of the day. If I want to go play Helldivers, I'll go play Helldivers. I do it all the time. I didn't need CS to also introduce these gritty mechanics. Like, this is dumb.
Also, by the way, I want to give you one, reasonable thing, and then I'll read out a tweet from an ex-professional warper that I think is very, very hilarious. The first thing I want to say is because I even saw, I think Maui said that sometimes on some maps you can spam and not be punished. On, for example, Yard or Nuke, you can just spam and there's no way for you to get punished. I actually disagree with that. I think, what if the T's break the smoke or they flash while you're spamming and then they go out and then they kill you? So I think in that sense, we already had some balance and that wasn't needed. And then what I wanted to read out is Snatchy, who I'm sure both of you remember, the Polish Snatchy, who used to play on VP for a little while as well. Now he's coaching NAVI Junior, the new NAVI Junior. He was an oper. And Snatchy tweeted after this event, this update came out. So at 2:43 a.m. yesterday, or today in the morning, he tweeted in full caps lock, "Dear Valve, what the fuck you did to this game?" ? I think that just says it. I would put my money that a lot of players felt that way. They probably just want to give it the benefit of the doubt. A lot of opers, shall I say.
Yeah, that's going to be a difficult thing. Understanding how best to use your AWP, like when to reload, when not to reload, like that becomes this whole extra bit of... Like, I don't even understand really why the AWP need to have 5 bullets instead of 10, let alone this. Like, this just makes it weird...
I mean, just shake hands and at least give them 7 or 8 bullets.
I've always had a theory that, unfortunately, the AWP will always be the gun that gets nerfed the most because, by definition, only one player on each team uses it. And if someone's really good with it... I joked about the Valve, but it's true. If someone's really good with it, it looks OP. It just isn't, in my opinion. It's not. I didn't even think the CS:GO up was OP. So I think the CS2 one is mad under. Like, they've cut the legs out from under it, and then we all go, "Why aren't you up? It's bloody dominant." It's like, well, they made the good worse, mate. What do you want?
It's a gun that's truly overpowered when you as a player are truly shit. Like in silver and gold, like that level of CS, there is nothing more overpowered than an AWP. Like, if everyone needs 15 bullets worth of spray just to land a kill, the AWP is great. You get 3 shots at it, and you only need to land 1. Like, yes, at low levels of play, the AWP is still fantastic. It's still overpowered, and they probably don't care for any of the changes, because a lot of the time Valve do openly just make their changes based on matchmaking. Like, straight up matchmaking, and obviously not the 0.1% who are 25k plus crying about everything, because, well, if you started addressing their complaints, you'd never stop changing the game, but also because the majority of their player base is that 90% who are below 20k elo. Like, and a lot of them are just bad. So they have made changes purely on that basis. Quite often in the past when it comes to the map pool, and I've got a feeling this is more of the same. This is somehow more of the same, unless... I still can't imagine which bloody player at 15k needs to think about his ammo in reserve. Like, I do not understand even who this is for. Like, I'm trying to be generous.
Was it 1.5 or 1.6 where you had to actually buy your bullets? Which version?
That was just all of it. That was all of it.
Yeah, it was all 1.6.
Yeah, it was all of them, right? Yeah, just bring
Condition
that back. Why
too,
not? Yeah, that was going to make it tactical.
The joke is that actually did have some element of strategy, believe it or not. Like, I'll give you an example. I'll pick this player, both because it's funny and I'm going to be rude. Guess what? I don't think Pasha Biceps was a very cerebral, intelligent player. All the things I like about him have nothing to do with intelligence. Believe it or not, in CS 1.6, he used to just have the bind that bought all the AWP ammo. Now, if you don't know, that actually is just a stupid economic move, because in 1.6, on certain spots you play, you just buy 10 reserve bullets. You have 10 in the clip, 10 otherwise. You're never going to use more than 20 in most cases. Like, actually, things like that, people would. I know the German teams were very tactical about it. They, on certain scenarios, they would buy less bullets if you were just in the role that didn't need it. Like, that's a very, very minor thing, though, but that did at least have a tactical / strategical component. When people say this is strategic or tactical, I really wonder what they mean by it, because beyond like set players, like we were talking about with Ted, like you just essentially wait for the guy to start spamming and then rush him. Beyond that dynamic, as far as I can tell, the only like strategical choice is just to do it less. So to me, it just removes something from the game. That's why I'm having a really hard time on this one, finding what people are so positive about. You know what I mean?
I think it just makes it different. It's just going to force you to either be a lot more boring or be a lot more proactive, basically, or a lot more careful. Not boring is the right way to say it. It does change some things, but again, it's like, weren't you happy with the tactical, dynamic that the game had? Maybe it could be a good thing in a couple of months. I don't know. I just don't see the appeal to it as of right now. For the Opers, I hate it. For everybody else, I can see a world where it's all right, but I just don't feel like it was needed. I think it's just out there. It changes something that maybe didn't need fixing.
Yeah, we'll see what it ends up being. I do generally agree with the sentiment, though. If you're going to talk about tactical changes to the game, or the game being more tactical, I don't see how this really made it more tactical.
See, utility was tactical changes. Like, dropping utility was a tactical change.
Yeah, and that was a brilliant change.
Not being able to, reload and losing the ammo that you had in the same clip when you reload. Now, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Obviously, it's yet to be played at a high level. I don't think there's any game that's actually playing on this patch yet, in terms of pro play. Not even Tier 2, Tier 3 yet, I don't think, but we'll see how that shapes up in the coming weeks. Of course, we'll see many more reactions, I'm sure, from the pros as they get to grips with it and start pugging with it, and I'm sure they'll be very quiet in their complaints, as they always are. Should they have any? Maybe they do love it. I doubt it. But okay, that's going to do it for us in this episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Leave a comment, your thoughts on any of these topics. Should NAVI be considered elite? Should MOUZ rebuild, and how? And of course, have Valve lost the plot? Yeah, that's all for this one. Sub for more. Remember that members get access to bonus content and rights. Shout out to our core contributors, XL and Romich, for their continued contributions. And we'll see you next time.